Congrats on 1 year Ethyria! And what a fucking year it's been! So to celebrate, you get to be my most recent victims of DnD transference. It's going to be fucked. It's going to be stupid, and it's going to be so fucking scuffed. But I hope you enjoy. Before that, I should probably explain what the fuck this is. I'll be making Dungeons & Dragons character sheets based off of the VTubers in Nijisanji Ethyria, Reimu, Enna, Millie, and Nina. I tried to make these adhere to the rules so you can actually run these characters if you wanted. That doesn't always happen, but any homebrew is as minor as I possibly can make it. No new classes or races. At most, it's adding a spell to a class list, switching a casting modifier, or flubbing multi-classing rules. Levels are going to vary a lot. If you want to try figuring out how to make a who knows how old dragon and a fucking penguin the same level, be my guest, because I'm not doing that. For how I'm actually going to be making the character sheets, I am using a standard array, a modified one, to keep things fair across all the builds, 16, 15, 14, 12, 10, 8, with Tasha's rules for ability score placement. I am going to be swapping between basic equipment and variant starting gold if I need something specific, and I'm not above fudging equipment in general, especially at higher levels. I'm also using custom backgrounds, which is really just taking a background and then changing the skills and tool proficiencies it gives. And finally, and most importantly, this is a fucking meme. Hell, I'm a fucking meme. Don't take it too seriously, aight. But, with that out of the way, let's start out with everyone's favorite amnesiac corpse, Reimu Endo, the Ghost of Darkness. First things first, she's a fucking ghost, and that's not really something we can do in D&D, but if we squint really hard, I figure Air Genasi is good enough. It lets Reimu be all floaty and air-like, and really the lightning resistance of Air Genasi isn't that bad for a ghost. Now, for class, it's a very comfortable undead patron warlock. She's made some unknown deal with some unknown ghost spirit thing that was at least strong enough to get her out of hell. I'm gonna make her level 11, which might be a little high, but it gives Reimu access to the Soul Cage spell, which she'll need if she wants to actually take people's souls like she says she will. Undead Warlock also gives Reimu the ability to go big spooky, which is fun, as well as removing her need to eat, drink, or breathe, and makes her spells more spooky themselves. It even gives her a return from death effect and necrotic resistance, and it even gets buffed to full immunity when doing the big spooky. Now, Warlock itself is really only the Pact Boon and Invocations, and the Pact Boon is easy. Chain Summon Poppy, the ghost that Reimu uses as her mascot. As for Reimu's invocations, I've outdone most of them with Agonizing Blast, Eldritch Spear, and Armor of Shadows, because only 2 are really interesting and those 3 are just good. The interesting ones are Whispers of the Grave, which lets Reimu speak to other, less animated dead, and Eyes of the Runekeeper, which lets her read any language because holy shit does Reimu know a fuckload of languages. Like, seriously, fucking hell. Actually, speaking of Reimu's languages, I actually decided to give Reimu 18 intelligence instead of the standard charisma for Warlock, and I'm not even going to swap the Warlock modifier to intelligence, I just think it makes sense. Now, switching it would make the build slightly better, but a 16 charisma isn't bad, especially since Reimu gets 2 feats and both of them give +1 charisma, giving her an actual total of 18. Brief break from stats, those feats are going to be Telekinetic and Shadow Touched. Telekinetic to give Reimu more poltergeist flavor, and Shadow Touch because, well, I don't know, maybe because she's a fucking ghost? Or maybe because she's literally been touched by a shadowy entity. Take your pick, really. But anyway, back to stats. With the exception of an 8 in Wisdom because she did get her memories wiped, and she trusted some random demon that resulted in her getting her memories wiped, and because she won't divorce her awful, unfaithful wife, I just put the rest of the stats down in descending order of perceived importance. 14 con, 12 dex, 10 strength. Now, we just need to cover background and skills, and honestly, I think Haunted One fits really well for Reimu. Not just because it's a pun, but because getting your memories wiped and, fucking dying can be pretty traumatic. She's going to get 2 languages because, again, girl knows some fucking languages, and performance and stealth as background skills, and deception and intimidation from Warlock, because she's sing good, sneaking is easier when you don't have to fuck with footsteps, and she's generally pretty aggressive and often just a straight up fucking liar. And finally her spells, and look, the only important one that doesn't come from a feature is Eldritch Blast. Invisibility and Cause Fear from Shadow Touch, Telekinetic gives Mage Hand more range, the rest are really just more spooky dark magic or specifically to boost the build's ghost factor. Following that, we have Millie Parfait, the Great Witch of Calamity. Ah, fuck. Shit. She's a big dick spellcaster, huh? Ugh, high levels are a pain in the ass. They have so much shit to go over. Fuck, she's probably a multi-class too, isn't she? Well, let's see. She's a witch, well that's not a class. That made a pact with a powerful demon, that's warlock, who saved her life by summoning meteors, that's a spell. And it's not for warlocks. So, in short, it's a fucking mess. Again. Fuck me.
I can't use my powers!
Oh. Oh, well her powers are dog shit now? Oh, hell yeah, that makes this so much easier. I'm totally using that. So yeah, she's technically very powerful, but right now she barely has any magic, which means this is a very special day for us indeed. The day we get to introduce the first ever level 1 Nijisanji VTuber! That's right, friends and enemies, you now bear witness to the reveal of the single most pathetic creature in all of Nijisanji, nay, the world, Millie Parfait! Now we just need to add her to the tier list, and... there. Perfect. But doctor, she's still a half-demon, so she has some power. You can't... Yeah, well, she can get those half-demon powers from being a tiefling. The half-demon option. We still need to figure out what class Millie is getting her 1 level from, and while I definitely would say warlock if she still had her properly strong magic, she doesn't. I've opted to go for 1 level of wizard, basically the magic she originally learned from her grandmother, since wizards are really the only class that learns magic like that. Now, technically she does have magic with this, but given that it's the magic of a literal 4-year-old compared to the magic of a tier 4 warlock, I think it's close enough to nothing. Now, being a level 1 wizard gives Millie... well, fucking nothing, really. Basic spellcasting and arcane recovery. Well, with the extra time, we can actually go more in-depth on the racial features. Dark vision, boring. Fire resistance, not super applicable, but makes sense because she's been in hell for a good while. And then there's the spells. Tieflings have a lot of different subraces, but most get basically the same ability. Cantrip and more spells at higher levels we don't super care about. Now, most of the subraces have 2 issues. One being that they're pretty heavily tied to a specific devil ancestor, and is just generally a little bit messy for what we're doing here. Second is that the spells kind of suck ass for Millie. Most of the subraces are like this, and most come from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, aka the Heck book, so that makes sense. But there were some variant options that came out earlier in the stepchild of D&D books, the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. One of these options is Devil's Tongue, which works the same way, but isn't tied to a specific devil or demons, and gives Millie access to Vicious Mockery, a much more fitting spell. Now that we're very thoroughly done with both race and class, we can peek back at the backstory to get her background, and man, it's fucking dark. Like, family burned at the stake and you were almost next dark. So, while I normally hate repeating myself, Millie is getting the Haunted One background too. From that, she's getting stealth proficiency from all the practice she got hiding in Alira's basement, and performance, because I will actually fight anyone that talks shit about Sana Ako Nalang. This bit isn't a joke, don't fucking test me. She's also getting cook's utensils and a language, so she can get both Fiendish ones, Abyssal and Tagalog, as well as Arcana and I guess fucking Insight for class skills, because the wizard options suck fucking balls. But anyway, now move on to her abilities, and for once we actually get something pretty helpful from the VTuber themselves. I mean, not super helpful because the stats Millie gives aren't the same as D&D stats, but hey, it's more than I normally have to work with. Now, -3 intelligence isn't an option for me, but she's still getting the lowest I can put there. And if you're wondering what stat I switched her casting ability to, I didn't. She sucks at magic right now, remember? For attack, that's not a stat, but the Vicious Mockery she gets from Tiefling does use Charisma, and since that's really her best form of attack, I feel confident putting Charisma as her strongest, especially since she's technically supposed to be a warlock that's been cut off. Dex is easy, since that actually is a stat in D&D, so it's going to be her second highest for the build too. Giving her 10 Constitution, because look at that defensive vitality. Mid at best. Then 12 Wisdom and 14 Strength, basically as leftovers, though I guess 14 Strength can go towards her attack stat if you want to be generous. Finally, we can hit her spells. We already hit Vicious Mockery, but wizards actually get a fuck ton of level 1 spells, and pretty much all of them need to be rituals. See, wizards can actually only prepare spells equal to their level plus their intelligence mod, but thankfully it's set to a minimum of 1, because otherwise Millie couldn't prepare anything. Wizards are also able to cast rituals directly from their spellbook, so 5 of the 6 spells she gets need to be rituals, including Find Familiar for Lucy, of course. As for the one outlier, I decided to go with Magic Missile, which is actually a pretty good attack option and is especially good for Millie since it doesn't use intelligence at all. It always does 1d4 plus 1 damage, it always fires the same number of bolts, and most importantly, always hits. But now that everything is done for Millie, we can move on to her best friend, Enna Alouette, the bird. Now, I actually want to start off with the racial options, since it's almost complicated with Enna, but it actually kind of fixes itself. Let me explain. She was a human who died and went to hell, and actually pretty much became a prolific demon, but then got yanked up to heaven and made into an angelic songbird. In other words, she was a human, then she was a tiefling, then she was... Well, I went with Protector Aasimar because the actual bird races really don't have anything angelic going on, but Aasimar has that, and the Protector subrace has wings sometimes. Yeah, it's only a temporary ability. We can chalk that up to Enna having a prosthetic and just claim that it only works in short bursts. Actually, going back to her time in hell real quick, I actually gave Enna the criminal background. Not just because she did so much bad shit she had to be removed from hell because she was making it worse, but because her being so well known in hell probably means she has some connections down there, which is the same idea as the criminal contact feature. She is also going to be getting intimidation and deception skill proficiencies, as well as thieves' tools and a language. While we're talking about it, she's also getting bard skills in performance, insight, and religion, since she's been through hell and heaven, and because she just gets a lot and they had to go somewhere. Anyway, for her class there are a few pretty good options, but thankfully we are pretty much told exactly what her class is. Her whole thing is that she's basically on parole from heaven and is tasked with helping people and healing through song. And hey, wow, look, it's the Bard class, the class all about helping and healing through song. Wow, ain't that just the darndest thing? Now, in all seriousness, Bard can do a lot more than just help and heal, and since there's no divine subclass for Bard, and the one that honestly fits more I already gave to Poem when I don't want this build to be a full-on copy, oops, I get to be a bit more creative. More specifically, I'm gonna say that the subclass is really Enna using the magic power of song in her own way, and that's gonna be with the College of Whispers, no questions asked. Now, the College of Whispers does a couple of things, and all of them hurt people, starting with Psychic Blades, which works basically like a Bard Divine Smite, and actually has some seriously good damage behind it. She also gets the ability to magically scare the shit out of someone, magically blackmail someone, and magically steal people's shadow and faces and wait, what the fuck? So yeah, Enna is getting all the College of Whisper abilities, and is going all the way up to level 14 to do it. Probably high, I admit, but I couldn't not give Enna the ability to blackmail people. I mean, seriously. First thing is that at level 14, bards get 4 total expertise skills, and those are going to be Performance, Deception, Intimidation, and Religion. Not great, but she gets expertise in 4 of her 5 proficiencies, so there's nothing to be done about it. For her stats, I maxed out her Charisma with an ASI to cover her insane Voca range, and because she's a bard. Then going down, we got 16 Dex, 14 Wiz, 12 Con, 10 Int, and 8 Strength, which I figured by just going down, putting them in whichever ability I thought most important. So it's less that I think Enna should have an 8 Strength, I just think everything else should not be an 8 more. She also has 2 feats, which I put into Warcaster, just a generally good one, especially for buffs and debuffs, and a Crossbow Expert, so Enna can fucking shoot people and get more procs for Psychic Knives. Finally, her spells! And since her main form of attack is shooting bitches, even her cantrips are largely unimportant. She gets a pretty big number that I split up among heaven-themed support and healing spells, and hell-themed fuck shit up spells, even for the magical secrets bards get. And finally we come to Nina Kosaka, the Keeper of Luck, and our mom. First things first, how the hell do you make a fox goddess of luck in Dungeons & Dragons? And I think it's best to focus on the fox part first and go with the shifter race, specifically Wild Hunt. Mostly because this shifter ability prevents nearby things from having advantage on you, which really sets a baseline for how this build is going to work, which is fucking around with dice rolls. Speaking of fucking with dice rolls, there are 2 class options that do that better than any other, Wild Magic Sorcerer and Divination Wizard. Now to maximize this, we need to hit at least level 8, 2 Wizard and 6 Sorcerer, but I've elected to jump all the way up to level 16 with 14 Sorcerer levels to make it more consistent, and because she's a fucking god! Because she's from heaven, you might assume she'd get the Acolyte background, And while I don't think that's necessarily wrong ability-wise, I do think another background with a very similar feature is better, Guild Artisan. Because she isn't an acolyte, is she? She doesn't worship the gods, she fucking is one. She's part of their club, a member of their guild. Eh? See? Whatever. Over her 16 levels, she gets a frankly insulting number of features in the bad down very few way. Like, when I bumped her sorcerer level from 8 to 14, 6 whole levels, you know how many sorcerer features she got? Fucking 1! The last one that I bumped her level to get. I mean, fuck, she got 2 ability score increases in that time. But anyway, yes, her class features. Going to get the wizard ones out of the way first. Wizard gives spellcasting, arcane recovery, cheaper divination, spell copying, and portent, the important part of this class. In so many words, it lets you decide basically any d20 roll for any creature in advance. Roll 2d20 after a long rest, record the numbers, and when you see something about to make a d20 roll, you use one of the numbers and get to just declare that that's the number rolled. No save, no advantage, you have your portent numbers, and you get to just tell the DM and the other players that's what a roll is going to be. It's really good and funny as fuck, and absolutely perfect for the Keeper of Luck. Technically, it does get better later on, but it only gets better by rolling 1 extra die on a long rest, and it only gets that at level fucking 14, a 12 level difference. Honestly, I'd rather the extra sorcerer levels. Speaking of sorcerer, it gets some funny shit, specifically Wild Magic Surge. In short, sometimes when you cast a leveled spell, the DM can just decide to have you roll a d20. Normally this is done every time I think, but it can vary from DM to DM. And if you roll a 1, you then roll on the Wild Magic Surge table, and then, well, something happens. This can be gaining resistance to all damage for a minute, all your hair falling out, turning into a fucking potted plant, theme music starts playing, anything. This table ties into most of the abilities, including Tides of Chaos, which just lets you take advantage on something once per day, except that after using your DM, at any point after you cast a leveled spell, can have you directly roll on the Wild Magic Surge table, but then you regain the use of Tides of Chaos. The next sorcerer bullshit is what Nina needs at least 6 levels of sorcerer for, as it lets her just add or subtract 1d4 from basically any roll. And finally, for the ability I gave Nina 6 levels for, Controlled Chaos, which very simply has Nina roll twice whenever she uses the Wild Magic Surge table and chooses either. It just didn't seem right for the Keeper of Luck and Random Chance to not have some sway over her own Random Chance, you know? But yeah, the only other thing from class are Metamagic, which I put as heightened and careful for more dice fuckage, and subtle, because it lets Nina do less work to cast spells, and Nina's 3 feats. Well, I say 3. 2 of them are going into ability score increases, and no points for guessing the lucky feat. Big fucking surprise. But speaking of ability scores, Nina's are going to end up being 20 charisma because damn her voice though, 18 wisdom because of her motherly advice, 14 con from drinking, 12 dex because Fox, can you tell these last ones just go where they fit, 10 strength mostly because it's funnier to give her 8 intelligence, say haha boomer no computer good, what do you want from me, it has to go somewhere. For her skills, Nina is going to get Perception and Survival from Wild Hunt Shifter, Religion and Insight from the Wizard options, and Deception and Persuasion from her background. And while I was really tempted to give her a language for regular, totally normal Russian, between that, brewer supplies, and some game of chance like cards, I want the other 2 more. Thankfully, shifters actually get 3 languages, so it's not a huge loss. As for her spells, her wizard ones are pretty similar to Millie. Same problem really, -1 intelligence needs 1 prepared spell, though Nina has Gift of Alacrity, which gives advantage on initiative because, yep, more dice tomfoolery. Her sorcerer spells are also about said tomfoolery. Magic Missile doesn't even need luck, it always hits. Chaos Bolt is all luck. Silvery Barb gives both disadvantage and advantage. Blur and Mirror Image make getting hit require a lot of luck. You get the idea. If you're interested in the full level 16 spell list, it is in the description along with the rest of the spell list and character sheets as always. And that's it! All 4 finished and all 4 totally legal and viable to run in your next game if you're either playing really high level or pay yourself. Technically, this makes my spiel about homebrew at the start pointless and misleading, but let's call that a happy accident instead of a mistake, okay? But yeah, all 4 character sheets are in the description if you want to have a closer look at them, take ideas for your own characters, or hell, even just rip them wholesale. Find yourself in a game high enough level for it. I would like to wish a final, very happy anniversary to the wonderful Livers of Etheria, and an incredibly heartfelt thank you to any guys, gals, gays, or theys out there for watching.